talking to people
everyday
on like
lifestyle.
everyday lifestyle, you know, like with everything going on, like I really wanted to have you on because like your podcast
Yeah,
is called The Young
definitely.
Black and like it's just like the perfect person to have. I would have had you on regardless, but like this
Oh,
was like
thank you.
the perfect time to have you on, you know.
This is only like the second time I've been on someone else's podcast, so I'm very excited to share it with my audience, and hopefully it'll get you some more listeners too.
Oh, I'm so honored to be the second one. This is a big deal.
Yeah.
So, like, how have you been? Like, what are your thoughts? What are you feeling right now? What's your energy like?
You know, I would say that right now, beginning of July, my feelings have calmed down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I actually suffer from anxiety. So I used to actually take medication for my anxiety. That's how bad it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm no longer on the medication. But now during these times, I wish that I was, because everything has my anxiety on high. You know, I mean, basically, you've seen the headlines. We're going through two pandemics. We're going through coronavirus, which I also contracted. I was positive for coronavirus.
Oh
So
wow.
I can tell you about that too. But we're going through coronavirus. We're going through racial injustices. And, you know, it's really nothing new for Black people like us. We've been paying attention to this for years.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like America is just now waking up. And I would say personally, in my circle, I have mostly Black friends, Black family,
Mm-hmm.
but where it's really hitting me is at work, because I am one of the only Black people in the office.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's a little different now that we're working virtually from home.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really have to like confront people and see people face to face, but just a predominantly white company with a white male CEO, just number one, recognizing that we have a race issue. Number two, figuring out what are we going to do about it. So that's what I'm really focused on right now at work. We've since started a new diversity committee, which was not even a thing a week ago.
Really?
So now we have a diversity committee, and I volunteered to be on said committee, and I'm just now stepping into that role. So I would say at the beginning, around May, when things started to light up after George Floyd's murder and Breonna Taylor, right at the beginning, I was so sad. Like I would find myself crying. Like I was very sad. I had high anxiety. And now I would say it's definitely toned down a little bit more as we've started to see some action take place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. There's a lot of great conversations coming out of this, you know. So many things are expanding and kind of growing. Like a lot of little things that were unseen before are kind of like getting the light that they need.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that we always knew it was there, but we kind of just dealt with it and put a mask over it. But now that mask has really been taken off, and there's really no hiding it. Like, I feel like this has touched every single aspect of our society. This has touched music. This has touched movies. You know how they talk about Oscars so white. This has really affected everybody. And now I see people speaking out who are normally not even on social media. So on the other hand, you know, you do have to do a gut check of your Facebook friends and your family, who's speaking out, who's not. And I'm going to turn it back to you, Dom, because I know that you do have a lot of friends who are not Black. So how have you dealt with that? Have you had to cancel anybody in your life?
No, most of my friends are pretty aware of things. I've talked, like anyone that I've talked to, they've been like, you know, supportive of everything going on. Anyone who I've had any kind of talking to that were on like more on the fence of things, I wanted to understand like where they were coming from with it. And some
I
people
feel you.
they just weren't aware of like what it's like, you know, it just wasn't in their ecosystem. So a lot of
Yeah.
people don't understand. They just see like a bunch of people, you know, they see like the riots and they see
The looting.
the looting and the protesting. And what they're seeing is just like, they don't understand that like, if the biggest thing that I've learned during this time is that you can't assume that people know what you know.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people out there, you know, just don't like, they're just like, I don't know what's happening right now in Thailand, sort of random place. And it could be like really bad or really good. It's just not in my world, you know. I
Yeah.
don't know what's going on there. And then if like all of Thailand's issues got brought to me, I'd be like, what the hell is this? Like, why is this here right now? Why, like, I'm trying to live my life. Why is this happening to me? And having that, after like understanding that like some people's realms just don't understand what it's like, I was able to communicate to like certain people and like tell them, like I'm helping. The reason I wanted to start doing this podcast because I wanted to help people that like were trying to understand things. That people that don't understand things a little bit more. Give them like a little bit like an anecdotal anecdotal story or like just like some enlightenment, because the movement itself has so many great things in it, and there's so much like this, it's getting so much backlash that I think that we need to make sure that, because all right, so my biggest thing is that there's a lot like the canceling thing it's not helping because it's making the line more divided as opposed to making it more enlightened. So the reason that as Black people, we know what the Black people struggles like, we know what we go through on a day to day, you know, we know what it's like to, you know, there's just things that are just different, you know.
Yeah.
And certain things just aren't known to other people. And as much as like the canceling, cutting out thing, I try not to do that because I just want to see what they think is happening. Because a lot of the people that I'm talking to are like, oh, this and that. I listen to them and I'm listening to what they're saying. And their issues, depending on who they are, like the people that are just completely racist, they're not going to talk to me anyway. Like, that's the extreme side of the spectrum. They don't like, I'm Black, whatever they want to think about it, they don't exist. But the reason we're doing all these steps and making all this is for awareness. And what the awareness is supposed to do, so like I think about everything on a scale of like 1 to 10, okay? So one is like hyper racist, you know, I was in the Klan, 4th generation, hate Black people, whatever. And then 10 is like, I'm here to help you, like save you, whatever that is. Now, what we're trying to do is get most of the people that are inside of like that 4, maybe even that 3 to like 7 range to become more aware and more active. So I've been trying to understand what that 3-4 like mindset is, and kind of just like find ways to see what people are thinking on that side. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like I feel like the weight of educating racist people or ignorant people has fallen on the shoulders of Black people. And sometimes we're just so tired. We don't want that to be our job. Like, go educate yourself. It's not my job to educate every white person. If you want to know why we're protesting, read a book, watch a movie. There are plenty of educational tools out there. You don't have to. I don't know if you saw that parody video of Black Alexa. It's like a Black Alexa.
I didn't see that, but I need to see that one.
It's basically like white people asking Black Alexa, like, hey, Black Alexa, what is Juneteenth? And Black Alexa will answer the questions so that you don't have to go and ask your Black friend, because the token Black friend or the token Black employee, we're tired of answering all these questions. And that's why, going back to the diversity committee at my job, I'm glad that it's not just all the Black people at the office. There's Hispanic people on the committee, there's Asian people on the committee, because all that responsibility should not fall on the shoulders of Black people. So I get what you're saying. Like, I definitely want to educate people. And as Black people, we don't have all the answers either. There's still plenty of things that we can learn. The other week, I had to Google, like, what does defund the police even mean? Because we're asking to defund the police, but I'm not sure what that means. Yes. So it's not like Black people have all the answers either, but I feel like we do know a little bit more than some white people.
Yes.
And like you said, some white people are totally in it. They're on the front lines with us and they are allies. And I totally support that and appreciate that. But the people who don't know anything, don't want to learn anything, that's when I'm just like, all right, you're a lost cause and I'm turning the other cheek. But you're saying you want to help educate as many people as possible. And I totally get that.
Because I see that the movement has so much power, and like when something gets extremely powerful, no matter what, there's supposed to be someone who's going to push it back, you know? So like no matter what, the bigger the bigger the tree, the larger the shadow, you know?
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure that, I mean, within my realm, you know, I'm not like talking to people every single day about it, but I just want to make sure that if someone's like against what is happening, just my own personal understanding too, because like I think people overall will understand that, you know, innocent people dying is wrong. That's like that should be universal truth. Like no one, I don't think any human agrees with that being wrong.
I'll play devil's advocate. Some people don't see George Floyd as innocent because he had a counterfeit bill. Like something like that is so minute. They could have just arrested him. They didn't have to kill him.
Exactly. And that was what I was curious about, because, okay, so like you said, devil's advocate, and I'm getting these conversations too. So he had a counterfeit bill, or he had fentanyl or something was in his system. Okay, like that is definitely not the ideal scenario, but it's not worth death. Like nothing about that warranted death. And I think that should be like understanding where that disconnect is the issue.
Yeah. And, you know, I don't know if you've heard about the story about Rayshard Brooks, the guy who fell asleep at the Wendy's and they killed him in the Wendy's drive-through. I think this was Atlanta. But even in that situation, I think the story goes, he grabbed one of the officer's tasers and ran with the taser. Okay, even still, a taser, I feel like unless a suspect has a gun pointed at an officer's head, like they don't deserve to die. That's my philosophy. Like there's so many other ways to de-escalate it. Like, and when officers say they fear for their life, I'm just not buying it, because how are you afraid when they don't have a weapon? Like you're the one with the gun. How are you afraid? So that's my philosophy. I don't think that anybody deserves to die. I don't care if they're the biggest criminal in the world. Like they don't deserve to have a knee on their neck for 8 minutes. I think there's other ways of reprimanding a person.
Absolutely.
And, you know, going back to defund the police, yeah, I feel like the police definitely get the most support from our communities. They get the most money. Meanwhile, our schools don't even have books to read. So I definitely think that we could, I'm not saying take away all the money from the police so they have nothing. I'm just saying, can we allocate some of those funds to other things? My mom is a public school teacher. Like I see her buying supplies out of her own pocket. Could we allocate those funds to schools maybe? Or another thing I would like to see is, I've seen some petitions going around about police training. Now, obviously, we've tried the body cams. The body cams didn't work. They could turn them off. They could turn it to the side, whatever. How else can we infiltrate the police and help them look at suspects as people? And that's one of the things I'm still trying to figure out on my own. I don't know what's going to work, but I have seen some petitions where people are saying, if a police officer wants to be an officer in a neighborhood where they are a minority, so let's say a white police officer in a predominantly Black city like Atlanta or Camden, New Jersey, they should have to volunteer or get to know the community that they're serving in.
They should.
Because the problem is, you're serving a community you don't even live in. You don't even know these people. That's a lot of the cops today.
That's one of the bigger issues. You know, the police officer job itself is such a powerful position, and the amount of like the training that they have to go through is like, I have never been through it, but from what I understand, it's pretty evident it's not really enough. And people that are going through it are like how does this person even get through? Like the person that even thought like this is like, was a cop. It's just like how did that even, just imagine like a teacher with that kind of role, with even that kind of mindset. You know what I mean? Like the barrier of entry needs to be higher. And I don't know, especially after this, I don't know who's gonna want to be a cop after this. Like, so like that whole field of like police officers for this whole, like if I'm a kid now, if you're like 6 right now, trying to figure out what you're gonna be when you grow up, you definitely don't want to be a cop. Like it's like, apparently not.
You know, some people say the best way for us to get over this hump is let's have more Black police officers. Well, there's some Black police officers who are standing by and not speaking up and are letting this happen. So as they say, not all skin folk are kinfolk. Like, I feel like police officers really put that blue over their Blackness. Like I feel bad for the police officers who do want to speak up, but they feel like their life is in jeopardy. They feel like their job and their family are in jeopardy. Because I know that police officers, and I'm not trying to bash police officers on your podcast, there are plenty of great cops out there. And that's one of the counter protests. People always say, oh, not all cops, Blue Lives Matter, whatever. I'm just saying, like, there are police precincts who are kind of like gangs. Like if you turn against your own kind, there will be consequences. So I can't imagine what that's like either.
I can't. And I think so. And that's one of the biggest things about this movement is that like we're on the same page of trying to better black folks, you know. But depending on who's like, the nation as a whole is going through this together, and there's tons of little nuanced stories that are like that might defend one point more than the other. Like overall, black people have been injustice between, you know, this our own spectrum, the own list of things that we can go over in a whole nother podcast about. But each person has their own little story as well. Each group, each state, that like they're only seeing the enemy that they want to see. So if you had a police officer, let's say you're a kid and your dad was a cop and your dad got killed fighting crime, no matter what happens, you're always going to be Blue Lives Matter, because that, like, you lost your dad to crime violence, whether the guy was white, black or white, like this, like that is your stance on it. Like, bad guys took away my dad, I have to, like, they're bad guys out there. Now, just the little things like that, I want to make sure that people are just, you know, aware of just, you may be fighting someone, like you may, like that whole realm of reality thing I was talking about, when you're interacting with someone and like trying to tell them like it's not your job to educate them. I'm not going to ever say that. But I just want to know what you don't like. What are you opposing? Because someone might be opposing something because, oh, George Floyd was a criminal. Like that's something. All right, that's one issue where I'm like, okay, like he didn't deserve to die. Like that. We can fight in the same realm there, and I'm gonna win. Now, if your issue is that, I don't know, something happened to you, and I don't have the exact example to give you, but like people just don't know the same things that you know. And the thing that I'm worried about now is that the movement is so powerful, but I don't want the power to get abusive, if that makes sense.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
So I just don't like, I've seen a lot of people, like, so if you say anything against the movement that like doesn't make, you have to be, so I'm all about people having like objective opinions and debating about it. That's what I want to happen, okay? And I just don't want people that if they have their own, if it's a logical opinion, it's someone who's not racist and just says, okay, so they're like, I don't like defunding the police. I'm supportive of innocent black people not being killed, but defunding the police, I don't like because blank, blank, blank.
Okay.
That, I feel like that's a valuable argument. You're allowed to talk, you're allowed to have a defense against that point. But what I'm afraid of is someone, let's say someone says that, I don't know, on Facebook, if they get caught saying that in the wrong context, they're automatically canceled, they're getting fired from their job, like everything ends for that person's life. Now, I just don't want the people that are just having opposing opinions, that are sound people, being bunched in with the racists that are being canceled, you know? Because that line, I don't want that line getting too hectic, you know? Because the problem is when people that are not racist, that just like have a different opinion, get outed, they become actual racists, you know? And I don't want to turn the 3s and 4s into 1s or -1, you know, because then like we're fighting more for a bigger step forward, but then we're creating a whole bunch of enemies that are going to stay in the shadows now because they can't talk. And that is like the scary dark side to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Basically, you don't want white people to be so scared to speak that they just revert back to racist ideals. And to that, I would say, I just feel like people shouldn't speak at all unless they have done their research and they know what they're talking about.
Yes,
and that goes for everybody, because I see a lot of people, and even going back to the pandemic, all this misinformation about coronavirus, that's why people are out here still not wearing masks, because people have just turned everything politically. And I think, like you said, we really need to rein in the Black Lives Matter movement, because I feel like people have forgotten the true message. The true message is Black Lives Matter. That's it. It's not, we're not saying, and then for Terry Crews to come out, I think it was a couple days ago, and said, oh, we're just saying Black Lives Matter, not Black Lives are better. Nobody even said that. Like, why did you even put that in the mix? Like, why was that even necessary? You didn't even have to say that, you know? So I just don't want people to forget, like, we're literally, all we're asking for is, well, really what we don't want is, we don't want equality. There's a difference between equality and equity. And I don't know if you've ever seen those infographics explaining the difference, but I suggest your listeners look at the difference between equality and equity, because really we want equity. And so that's all we're asking for. We're not asking you, I mean, reparations would be nice, but is it possible? Probably not. With this debt that America has, we ain't ever gonna see reparations. Yeah. I'm not even asking for my reparations. I just want you to stop killing us. It's not like we're asking for something crazy. We're not asking you to all of a sudden give us all promotions and kiss our feet. And some of those demonstrations of white people washing Black people's feet at protests was very weird to me. That's not necessary. I don't need all that. I'm not asking you to kiss the ground Black people walk on. I'm just asking you to simply stop killing us.
Yes, and that's what I'm talking about too. Like the nuances, because someone sees like one of those videos and they're like, oh, what is this? This is crazy, and then they're against the movement, and it's like, no, that's not even about that. You know, if the nuances that are happening that people are seeing just one clip are completely just change your entire perspective. Because we know we're over here just trying to fight for, you know, getting treated like fucking people, not being killed, and that's like not being killed by cops. Like there's just so many things that like, this is what it is. Our ancestors fought for this. And now we have so much momentum, so much power in the movement. Like I'm loving it. Now we just got to make sure because now it's just like, now it's a trend. Like now it's mainstream. Like it's a hashtag, you know, it's a whole thing, which is great because you get all the good side of it, like all the awareness of it. But the bad news is that like, now you take a picture at a protest and like you could just show up like for 5 minutes, took a picture and leave. And you know what I mean? There's just too much danger of being that big.
That also bothers me because I feel like at the height of it, all I saw on my timeline was Black Lives Matter. Let's post the Black Square. Let's bring awareness to it. And then immediately the next week, everybody was on to something else. And everybody's timeline is now going back to normal. But I don't want us to lose this momentum because I feel like, well, I'm only 25 years old, but I feel like in the past 25 years that I've been alive, I've never seen the Black Lives Matter movement really take off like this. Like we are actually being heard. I feel like we actually are being heard. And, you know, with all the cops in George Floyd's murder being, not indicted, but charged at least.
That's a big
deal. That was a step in the right direction. All these petitions that we continue to sign for Breonna Taylor, just celebrities using their platform and their voice. I feel like this is the first time I've really seen it this big. I mean, obviously we had Michael Brown, we had Trayvon Martin, but I've never in my 25 years seen it explode like this. And like you said, I don't want it to just be a moment. It is a movement. Like Black Lives Matter isn't going anywhere. I need people to understand that. So as you said at the top of the episode, I really think that we are starting to see some changes. You know, now a lot of these companies, so how do you feel about these brand responses? Immediately, brands are posting Black squares. We stand in solidarity with our Black employees, our Black constituents, because I need people to realize that Black people really move the culture. We are the pulse. Whatever Black people wear, it's hip tomorrow. Whatever we do with our hair, our nails, Kardashians are repeating it. So all of these brands really can't survive without Black people. And if a brand didn't speak up, I'm really looking at them funny because Black people have the most spending power. Like the Black dollar is so important. So if you're not going to say anything about Black people, I'm looking at you weird. I feel like nowadays, actually, I'm on my timeline. I see girls posting pictures at the beach or whatever. I go on their profile. If you don't still have that Black square up there, I'm kind of looking at you a little funny. Like, did you ever post it? Did you ever care? Did you ever say anything? Or when people were crying for justice for Breonna Taylor, were you posting beach pictures? Like, that's what I'm looking at nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's let me get.
But how do you feel about the brands?
Yeah, let me bring the brands thing. Then I'll answer the next part. So I think the brands thing. So there's two parts to each of this. Each thing with this. There's the awareness, and then there's like action. Mm-hmm. I love the posting for the awareness. I love like any company that puts up support. Like, I love, you know, you got
Nike
Black Lives Matter this,
commercials.
Nike commercials. That's the awareness thing. That's showing, okay, we're willing to publicly say we support you guys, right? So that's a great thing. Now, the other side is the action steps. So when the world goes back to normal next couple months and Black people are trying to get jobs that are qualified or wherever, like when Black people are trying to come to your company to work, like you put that square up, you put that post up, like what's good? Because that's when it really counts. You know what I'm saying? Like when
I
people
agree.
are inside your office, like I don't know anyone who works at Nike. So like, how's that Nike office? You know, how you guys being treated in there? And that's the spot where I'm like, okay, like you did the step one of awareness. Cool. Like I appreciate you guys showing your solidarity with your brand's image. Great. Now, where it really counts now, like when the real nitty gritty, like how are you doing? How are you acting as a company that way? And that's what only time can tell, you know? So I really I like the black square. I appreciate that. I love the awareness, but then like, I want to see them double down to make sure they're still following with the same things that they're in. Cause like when it's trendy, you know what I mean? Juneteenth, black square, LGBTQ, oh my God, LGBTQ rainbow, you know, we got Hispanic Heritage Day, whatever holiday they want to put on the thing.
I was just about to say, you know, all of this kind of happened simultaneously during Pride Month. And I do feel bad for the LGBTQ community because I feel like we kind of rained on their parade and Black Lives Matter kind of took over the month of June. But realistically speaking, you know, Black Lives Matter includes Black, trans, and gay and lesbian as well. So they're all kind of intertwined. But I completely agree. How many times has a brand changed their logo to rainbow on Twitter for June and then changed it back for July, you know? So I really hope that these brands that made these little public Instagram apologies, I hope they're putting money towards petitions and bail funds, and I hope they're hiring more Black people. And the whole hiring thing, I really don't want it to be like affirmative action. I really don't want them to be like,
that either.
oh,
That's
yeah,
why I want the
now
qualification thing too. Like,
yeah,
just checking
oh,
the
now
black
that Black
box.
Lives Matter happened, we have to hire 2 Black people for every department. I don't really want that because then you're not doing it because you want to, you're doing it because you have to. I just want them to look at us equally and be like, wow, there's a lot of talented Black people out there. Let's hire them first. That's all I want.
And with you, like with your job, do you feel like, how do you feel with, I don't want you to say too much because obviously, you know, you got a job to keep, but like.
I can go into a little bit. So I'm a social media producer for a print magazine. Like we actually still print a magazine, but we also have a digital presence. We have a website and we post articles on there. And, you know, the company that I work for, we write a lot about innovative and exciting, newsy kind of things that are happening. So we're writing about it, but behind closed doors, we just had to create a diversity committee because we never had one before. And I'm glad that we're starting to take steps in the right direction. And, you know, our leadership and all of our employees are learning. Because like you said, some white people are just ignorant because they never had to deal with it. That's just the reality of it. Like you said about Thailand, why would I think about Thailand when I've never had to step in their shoes, you know? But now that it's confronting them and it's interrupting their daily lives, it's like, oh, this is all I see on my timeline. Now I can't ignore it. Like, yeah, now we're in your house, now we're in your face, and you can't ignore us. So with my job, I feel like we definitely are making steps in the right direction. I'm not sure if there's been any donations to Black Lives Matter or anything like that, but we definitely would like to start hiring more Black people. And this is a media job, right? Like there's not that many Black people with high level C-suite executive positions in media. So that's definitely something that I aspire to do with my podcast, Young, Black, and Opinionated. I'm trying to pave the way for Black millennials. You know, I don't have it all figured out. I've only done my podcast for 2.5 years, but sometimes people ask me questions about podcasting and I realize, wow, I know a little bit more than them and I can help them in some way.
It's
and I was in their shoes. Yeah, it really is. Because I don't really know much, but people look up to me and I inspire people. And I just put on my Instagram the other day, like, we have to keep supporting each other because sometimes we're all that we have. And, white people, they network, they get jobs with their dad's golf buddy, they get internships with their mom's sorority sister, right? And Black people, we have to do the same for each other. We have to, once we get our foot in the door, leave the door open behind you so other people can come in, because sometimes we're all that we have. And, just going back to the white privilege thing, like, I can't imagine what it would be like to just know that you're going to graduate, you're going to get a job because your daddy's company owns so-and-so. And not every white person has that lifestyle, but white privilege goes a long way. It can definitely help you a lot. And so I think now that Black Lives Matter is threatening people's white privilege, now that's when you start to get the All Lives Matter people. That's when you start to get people who are just acting so ignorant and doing the counter protest. I don't like people doing a protest at a protest. Like, that's not what this is for.
That is insane.
Yeah. If you hate us that badly, go start your own protest, but don't come ruin ours, So, and the white privilege has clearly been threatened by coronavirus as well. So people are just shook. And that brings up another point. I was talking to my aunt, and she's older. She's in her late 60s. So, this is a generation, she already had to deal with all this, with the Martin Luther King and all that stuff. And now to see it happen all over again, she said, like, I wonder why now, why 2020? And I really think, in my opinion, that the pandemic kind of leveled the playing field. It made everybody stay home. It made us all stir crazy. Coronavirus did not discriminate. It killed Black people. It killed white people. Black people lost their jobs. White people lost their jobs. So now I feel like it really leveled the playing field, and it made people realize that we're not that much different. So
I agree with that.
I'm not going to say I'm thankful for coronavirus, but I'm just thankful that I get to live in this year where everything is being flipped on its head.
It's a big paradigm
shift. And I survived COVID.
Yeah, you did. You're a survivor.
Yes. My symptoms were very mild, so I wasn't in the hospital or anything. I just self-isolated at home. I truly felt like I had just had bad allergies. So when I found out, so it was about Memorial Day, and I was feeling pretty sick, but I still took myself out to a barbecue. Probably shouldn't have done that.
Ooh.
And then a couple days later, I lost my sense of taste and smell. And I was like, all right, this is not cool. So I got tested at a drive-by testing facility where they just swabbed my nose. And I started to feel better. I never had a fever at all during the whole thing. So everybody who keeps saying, like, oh, if you don't have a fever, no, I didn't have a fever and I still had it. So definitely get tested. But when they called me and said positive, I was like, what? I was so shocked. So all I had to do was stay home for 10 days. And I feel a whole lot better now. And I never had to go to a hospital or be on a ventilator, and everything worked out. But yeah, imagine going through that. And then at work, like I said, I'm a social media producer. So my mental health was on thin ice. Let's just say on my timeline, all I see is this, what they call trauma porn, this video of George Floyd with a knee on his neck over and over. Nobody wants to watch that over and over. Like, I'm not interested in watching the man die. Yeah. I just want to see some justice for him. So by day, I'm working on social media for my company. By night, I'm trying to enjoy my timeline, but I can't because there's so much trauma on it. So I had to take a break. I had to log off for a couple of days because I just didn't want to see it. So I really hope that other Black people are taking care of their mental health, because on one hand, you want to stay informed, and you want to watch your timeline and see what happens next. But on the other hand, you cannot just keep consuming all this bad news,
Yeah, it will definitely mess your head up.
Yeah. And so at my job, I did feel some type of way when everybody kept asking me, like, how are you feeling? How's everything going? Like, okay, it's national news that a Black man died at the hands of police, and now all eyes are on the Black employee. So I did feel like, oh, can we just get back to work? Like, stop asking me about this. But on the other hand, I'm glad that people asked and we had those uncomfortable conversations, because my job had a big Zoom town hall where everybody got to ask whatever questions they wanted. And it did get awkward. It did get uncomfortable. But I'm so glad that we had that conversation, because if you're not talking about it, then you're part of the problem.
Agreed. The conversations are everything.
Yeah.
Like, the conversations really are everything. And like the conversations like plant the seeds of change, you know? And
Yeah.
I'm really glad to see that. I'm glad your company was kind of hopped on a wave, making sure like things happen. Because I don't know, I haven't talked to enough people individually to know like what their companies are doing. Like
Yeah,
that's a big deal.
I'm part of a networking group called Link NJ, since I'm from New Jersey, and it's predominantly like 20 to 30-year-old Black professionals.
Nice.
And in the group chat, everybody was like, "What did your company say? What's your company statement?" Kind of checking each other, like, what statement did your company make? My company, I don't think we ever really made a public statement, but internally, our CEO did make a statement, and we made Juneteenth a company holiday. Some people before all of this were thinking, "Oh, I'm taking off Juneteenth. I'm going to use PTO." I never really got around to doing that, so once they made it a company holiday anyway, I was like, oh, it all worked out in the end anyway. And Juneteenth, I was just so elated and filled with joy to see Black people actually celebrating. You know, at the time of we're recording this, 4th of July is coming up, and that's going to look way different this year. I don't think any Black people are trying to celebrate 4th of July. Not that I ever did. I never actually was like, yay, America, happy birthday, America, like Independence Day. It was just another day off from work and a chance to barbecue. I never really celebrated it. But now I feel like Black people, 4th of July is about to be like Juneteenth part 2. So
I think so too. So the funny thing, ironically enough, it's my birthday. So like,
oh really?
yeah, like
Happy birthday.
I've celebrated on it obviously because it's my birthday, but I was never like America.
Yeah. I mean, I
like
wearing red, white, and blue, but now I might have to change that.
Me too. And like one thing that I think is really interesting about this time too is because like there's so much we have to change in this country, the system, how we're treated.
Yeah.
And the like the rules of like what the intention of what the country's supposed to stand for is about standing up for what you believe in and like knowing what like not letting like government control you. So I think it's very interesting that like it's fucked up because like everything that is happening to Black people is so wrong. And the thing that like what we're doing right now, like protesting, speaking against the system, is still like what America's supposed to stand for in a sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, when people were talking about looting and damaging property, some people rebutted, well, what about the Boston Tea Party? They were against taxation and they dumped the tea in the ocean or whatever. Like, that's the same thing. Like,
that's exactly it.
America was founded, you're right, founded on revolution and the whole reason that the settlers apparently came to America, I mean, I forget a little history class, but they came to America because they wanted to practice whatever religion they wanted. They wanted to, practice whatever. So if you wanted those liberties, why can't everybody get them here? First of all, you stole this land. It's not even your land. So don't even act like you built this shit yourself because we really built it for you. So, and then when you talk about the system, talk about Juneteenth and how 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, some slaves just didn't get the memo, and that clearly wasn't an accident. Texas just didn't want to tell them. So
that's some bullshit.
Yeah, we have those problems like so deeply rooted, and those people in positions of power. This has been going on for what, 400 years? So the Black Lives Matter movement does make me hopeful, but I know that's not going to happen in a day. If these things have been going on for 400 years, it's gonna be hard to change things. I mean, look at the Crown Act. You know that bill they made where people can't discriminate against your hair at work, the Crown Act. I think only California has signed it so far. Well, we're coming up on a year of that. Like, why do we even have to say that? Why do we even have to make it a law that you can't discriminate against hair?
That's
simple
bullshit.
Things like that. Yeah, simple things like that. I'm like, it really took us this long to make this a law. So I mean, the point is, though, the protests and the petitions, they really do count. And same thing with voting. I hope your listeners are registered to vote. Voting really does matter. Yeah. And so I know that it's going to take some time, but I am hopeful that maybe we won't even see systemic change in our generation, but hopefully my kids and my grandkids won't have to live with this.
I amen to that.
Amen to that. I just went on my soapbox, but like you said, I am passionate about this topic because I am a Black woman, and I feel, no shade to the Black men, but I feel like Black women aren't really appreciated, protected. I mean, look at Breonna Taylor. I feel like there's a reason that George Floyd's story got more news than hers did. Yeah,
I 100% agree that like the Black men, Black woman like treatment as a whole is not even close to fair.
Yeah.
And so this is one more step in the right direction.
Yeah, this topic is super important to me. And I mean, if you want to go back to like pop culture, that whole J. Cole no name celebrity beef, that was so whack to me. Like, maybe J. Cole did call the girl out on his song. He shouldn't have did that. But I just don't think that should be the focus right now.
That shouldn't even have been a thing.
Yeah. 2 Black artists made a song about the movement. That's what's important. Listen to the song, don't listen to the song, but at least they use their voice for good. Because celebrities who don't speak out, No Name had a point. Celebrities who don't speak out, you have all these followers, you have all this influence over people. If you don't say anything, then that's a problem with me as well. So it's just so many things we could talk about.
There's so much. I'm glad. I'm glad. I wanted you to be the first one on here because I knew you had a voice, you had an opinion.
Definitely. I have a lot.
You knew how to articulate it the right way.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said earlier, you know, I might not say the right thing or know the right thing, but that's why I really think that we should listen to, you know, racial leaders. I mean, look at Angela Davis. Angela Davis is still alive. Why are we listening to celebrities on social media? Let's turn our attention to Angela Davis. She still has important things to say. She's still alive. She can still teach us, you know?
She can.
I feel like there are plenty of educational books and movies, you know, 13th and Selma. Those could teach you more than I ever could. But when it comes to the Black perspective of a Black female, maybe I can have an anecdote or a story to share that people might look at my perspective and say, oh, wow, I didn't think of it that way. The diversity committee at my job, we were talking about doing this assignment called Lands, where basically I say, hey, Dom, welcome to my land. I'm a Black female, and this is what it's like living on this land. And then you repeat it back to me. That way, you understand my perspective, and you say, okay, I'm empathizing with your perspective. I think that's a really cool assignment that we might try. Because going back to the white privilege thing, how are you supposed to be empathetic to something that you've never lived through? I understand. Some people don't see it as a problem because they don't have to live through it. But Black people, those little microaggressions, we face those every day. Maybe one time I was coming down an escalator in New York City, and this guy was like clinging to the side like he didn't want to touch me. Like, I understand it's New York City, but like people touch each other all the time in New York City. Well, maybe not during COVID, but on the subway, on the escalator, it's a tight, dense city.
It is.
So for him to like cling to the side, like, I was like, oh, is it because I'm Black? Like, that's how I felt. And those little microaggressions, white people wouldn't even give it a second thought because they don't have to live with that. So for me to share stories about my hair or, you know, even the other day, me and my friend were talking on social media about the BMI chart. Now, I'm not going to get too much into that because I know you're a fitness guy, Dom. But some people think doctors' BMI charts, they need to adjust those for different demographics because as a Black girl, I'm a little thick. I have thighs, I have butt. But when I was going through puberty, I thought I was fat. I thought I was obese, comparing myself to my slimmer white friends. And the doctor pulled out their BMI chart, and that chart was not made for Black bodies. So
it was not. It is not.
So even little microaggressions like that, a white person probably wouldn't even have to think twice about that. So those are the perspectives and the stories that we have to keep telling. And podcasting is a way to story tell. So I'm so glad that you invited me on today.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So Christina, how do they find you if they want to follow you, check you out, listen to the Young Black and Opinionated podcast? You want to drop some gems on them?
Yeah, so my podcast, I try to put it out weekly. I'm not always consistent. But if you want any updates on the show or if you want to find new episodes, you can follow the Young Black and Opinionated podcast on Instagram and Facebook. It's at the THEYBO podcast on Instagram and Facebook. And the podcast is available on Anchor, Apple, Google, Spotify, all those platforms. And my personal Instagram and Twitter is Miss Chris D for Christina Diane. So that's MISSCHRISDEE.
All right, well, guys, definitely go check her out and follow. Guys, thanks so much for listening. Christina, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to hear what else you have to offer. And I really love this topic, and Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter, baby. All right, guys, take care, and thanks for listening.